Hello and welcome to the very first edition of FTMO Live. A new idea from the fan club, and the idea very simply is this. I'm going to try and bring you closer to the band than you've ever heard before. The way we're going to do this is from time to time I will make recordings like this featuring backstage access in a kind of fly on the wall way to Status Quo. Now we're kicking off this first edition simply because right now I'm here in Australia with the band where they are about 2/3 of the way through their year 2000 Australian tour. So what you can hear in the background, and it's now 10 to 5 in the afternoon, is the sound of Quo sound checking. So already, hopefully, that's something that you won't have heard before, and that's what we're going to try and bring you throughout this recording, so stay tuned. Let's welcome to the very first edition of FGMO Live, Mr. Francis Rossi. Well, Francis, you've just done your sound check at Melbourne.
Yeah.
How was it?
1 second.
Oh, I see.
As far as sound checks go in this country, very good. Most of these vast arenas don't sound very good. And we've got a very efficient system that doesn't wrap round. A wrap round system means that we get some of the sound from the front comes to the middle of the stage, which in most cases helps, some cases is a problem. It's all of any problem. But this system so efficient it doesn't wrap round, and we've gotten used to over the years having a system that wraps around. This one doesn't, so everything sounds very dissipated. And most of the halls we played in, the sound's been a bit, but the shows have been quite good. Today sounds tremendous, so I don't know if that's good or bad news. Probably bad.
Well, we'll check with you later. All right, well, actually, I'm going to walk you down this corridor to the dressing room, where I will eventually reveal to people...
No chance of shag on the way, is there?
I don't know.
No, they are for it. Well, in this country, maybe.
You're 2/3 of the way through the tour now.
Yeah.
It's your third tour in about 4 years.
Yeah.
How's it going? How's it compare?
Fantastic. Each time, I think most people in England could do with come into this country to find out. You know, because we're taught at home that everything evolves, began, and ends around England.
Right.
And as you know, it doesn't. Been a really good tour, and we're planning on coming back. It's a great place to be.
Fabulous. Thank you, Francis.
And the food's brilliant.
See you in a bit.
Right.
Now, through those swing doors, I'm lingering and loitering backstage, comes Mr. Rick Parfitt.
Excuse me.
Well said, that man. Welcome to FGMO Live, which is a new fan club idea to bring fan club members closer to people like you.
Lovely.
How was sound check?
Confusing.
Why?
Well, I've got a few problems with my sound at the moment, and I'm just trying to get it right. And you have it one way and you have it the other way, and then end up with it sort of in the middle, which is the way I like it, really.
All right, well, let's just walk you down this corridor. No need to linger and loiter with me. We can walk as we talk. No, this is all pucker gear. It picks it all up. So, just said to Francis, you know, you're nearing the end now of this particular Australian tour.
The end.
The end. It's been a good one, hasn't it?
Yes, it has, in terms of audiences and reaction and PR and laying in the sun and stuff like that. It's been fantastic. Overall, yeah, it's been really good. Yeah.
All right, well, you're headed now to have a little break. You're on stage in about 4 hours.
I'm going to have a I must have a before, because I always like to have a wash before I go on. You know.
See you in a bit, Rick. Well, a very warm welcome now to the man they called this afternoon, Matthew Lumley. Do explain, Matt.
We were doing a record signing in store, and unfortunately the compere got my name wrong.
Did you mind that? Was it embarrassing?
Oh, you just have to laugh. What can you do? But a few of the punters shouted out the correct name, which was rather nice.
Well, as I said to you at the time, I do know your sister Joanna. All right, well, the idea of me talking to you now is for a new idea of the fan club that I'm going to call FTMO Live. So really, we're going to come behind the scenes, backstage, and bother you guys. Right. But the first question I've got for you, just very briefly before you go and have a rest before the show, is you've been to Australia now how many times?
This is my 4th time here.
4th time, and the other 3 occasions you were with?
First of all, Bob Geldof in '87. And then David Essex, we came over here for 6 weeks in 1990, and then Vanessa May in '96.
And how does this tour compare with those?
This is a lot more fun. But it's always fun to come to Australia, but no, it's very, we've had a great time here. We've seen so many different aspects of Australia. Magnetic Island was fantastic, Brisbane, Sydney. I mean, it's just all been very different and very, very enjoyable.
Well, look, before I let you go, I've got to ask you this. Obviously, Australia is one of the real hotbeds of die-hard Quo fans, and you have been introduced every night on stage as the band's new drummer. How do you feel the audiences are responding to you? Do you feel like they're happy to have you here?
Yeah, I'd like to think so. I've had some nice comments, so they say they like the new sound. So that's all positive.
Fabulous. Thank you, Matt.
All right. See you later.
I'm now in Quo's wardrobe room backstage here in Melbourne, waiting to see something possibly quite strange unfold, which hopefully I'll be able to record for you. But while I'm here in the wardrobe room, let me tell you what I see. I see 5 chairs, and those chairs have the famous by now dark blue dressing gown type robes that Quo actually put on immediately after they've come off stage and go off and leave the building. So they're all here ready and waiting. Over here on another wall there's a little rack, and it's got all of the stage gear already on hangers, and beneath the clothes I see 5 pairs of Reebok trainers, which of course are the shoes that Quo wear on stage. But let's return now to this bit of strangeness that's just through a wall there. There's a local radio station in Melbourne called Gold 104.3, and they've recently been running a competition to have listeners play the weirdest rendition of whatever you want, the weirdest rendition on whatever instrument or whatever sound effect they wish to use. Now apparently they had people ringing in playing Whatever You Want on a baby's bottom. They had people playing it with a special sprayer, and the winners indeed are some people who have actually played the opening chords of Whatever You Want on a didgeridoo. Now there's a whole bunch of people out there, and in a minute Quo are going to be brought through from their dressing room to meet them. So I'm hoping if I stay close by, I might actually be able to hear a didgeridoo version of Whatever You Want. Now that would be an exclusive, so stay there. Well, moments later, the band are now actually leaving the dressing room, and I'm just going to stay behind them, and they're meeting, there's probably about 8 or 9 people here, and let's just see whether that didgeridoo gets any action. Simon being Simon Porter, of course that's the band's publicist, and David Walker's here too. We'll have a word with him later on. Now Francis has come back out of the dressing room. He's actually got a mini amp in his hand because it looks as though we're going to amplify this didgeridoo. So let me just step into the circle and we'll hear what goes on. That clunk was the mini amp going on the glass table.
Go away with that.
You're recording.
Well, I was slightly wrong about the didgeridoo. That's obviously when they're playing on guitar. Playing a song on guitar. And there's more coming.
butchering your song.
Rick will sue you. Are you a double act? Are you entering this competition as a double act?
Well, there you go. You definitely heard it first. That was Quo played on the didgeridoo. Where better to hear it than in Australia? I'm now joined by Mr. John Rhino Edwards. And where are we, John?
Catering.
And what's for supper? You going to have a look?
Well, I'm looking at the lovely Darrell Hills. This is not a very good choice today, I'm afraid. There's only about 8 different choices. It's, things are really getting us down here. We'll rise above it.
Have you investigated yet?
I have. I'm just doing the vegetables.
Oh.
Oh, roast beef with roast. Yeah, some of that. For those of you who can't see some of that, that's parsnips, carrots, roast beef. And moving on briefly, we have chicken with saffron rice.
Excellent.
Actually, I think it's basmati. Vegetarian lasagna. La, 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 la. I cooked it all myself, Flip. Mashed potato. For us Poms.
One of them wants a smudge, was it?
And something here which is yellow and orange, and I can't really tell you what it is, but there's 11 of them on there.
Okay.
Various salads, fruit, cake, Tabasco, mustard.
All right.
It's not as good as I make at home. There's not as many choices.
Well, look, Rhino's required for a photo, so we'll let him go there. Thanks,
Okay.
Rhino.
In Cairns, I met the girls from the support group, right? They had a video camera. They came in, and I said, "Hello there, I'm John. I'm the token Cockney of the group." She said, "You're not. You're not." I said, "Yes, I'm a Cockney." She said, "Oh, I thought you said cockhead."
Hello there.
But there you go. We're now about to walk to the stage for Quo's performance tonight
Hello,
here in
Cleveland.
Melbourne. Hello, Cleveland. And I'm going to follow them and see if I can not get in the way. Right, here we go. We're walking down the corridor. I'm being led by Mr. Dave Salty Salt. There's Rick up ahead. Then we have Matt. Then we've got Paul Hirsch. And behind we have Lyanne and Francis, and Rhino's temporarily unavailable. So we're walking down half a dozen steps towards the stage. We've lost Rhino. And that's the band's drone, about to start up any moment now. Okay. I'm holding the door open for Francis. There we go.
I went the wrong way.
Yes.
I did.
Very rock and roll that,
Totally.
right?
Hello, Cleveland. Spinal Tap is the best film ever.
Okay, so actually, Rhino, how do you feel? You haven't seen the audience. You're seconds away.
Well,
really.
you go from 0 to 100 miles an hour. It's not something you even think about really, because you get used to it. But it's not something. I think if you build up to it, it's probably subconscious.
Right.
You just, and then you just go from 0 to 0.
How are you feeling?
The
Rick?
leather, the
Skör
trousers.
behår, skör behåller.
That's what I said, but that was
Gert.
Swedish.
Now I'm going to check out because that's Rick's idea of fluent Swedish. So
Skirt.
if
We're all together.
Borrelov. Hopp.
have a good one. All right. Okay.
I don't know what's
Well,
Whatever you do, don't talk to Mike or Ryan. Hello,
hello,
Mike.
hello,
All right.
Francis, sorry about this.
Oh, this is good. Matt's yawning. Must be in with a chance tonight. It's like us, isn't it? I know, you're like bloody hell.
All right, everyone. So we're now waiting for Quo's famous drone to start up, and that will be the cue for the band to go on stage. Now, I cannot, for reasons of legalities, record any of the music that you're going to hear tonight in any great extent because publishing prevents me from doing that, which is also why bootlegging is highly illegal. So any of you people out there ever who manage to get into gigs and do the bootlegs that the band don't like, you'll know why it's not a very good thing. So, but anyway, bear with me. The crowd are starting to build up, and I will follow the band up the ramp and onto the stage. All right, that's the drone. Audience are obviously warming up as well, so just bear with us. And there we go.
Oh, we're doing it then. Are we doing it?
Get to eat if we do it. I'm doing it.
Well, there you go. Right, so Quo are now just stepping through some scaffolding and through some drapes, and they'll be on stage any minute now. I'm literally standing right by the stage. Quo are walking up on stage, and we're going to have a show on any minute. Now I'll stay here while the opening chords strike up of the opening song, and then we'll catch up with you a little bit later. So let's go and hear what Melbourne have got to say about Quo. I think you might know this one. When the drums and bass come in, it will blow my speakers. Okay, well I'm going to make my way backstage again now, because as I say, I really cannot bring you any of this live music, but we'll catch up with the band at some point later on tonight. Okay everybody, I'm still backstage. You know this song that Quo are just finishing. Now this is the last song before the band's encore. So let's just hear how they've gone down tonight. Okay, well there you go. Now as you know, the band will go off stage. Maybe another time other than tonight I might be able to catch them in between the main set and the encore. But for the time being, that's the end of the first part of the show for tonight. So we will catch up with you yet again a little bit later. Well, it's again that time of night. Okay, that obviously is the end of the show. Now I want you to hear now how quickly Quo leave the building, because most times, I'd say 99% of the time, Quo have left the building before you have. And I'm going to walk with them now to two waiting cars which will whisk them away, and that's when the 5 dressing gowns I mentioned earlier in the dressing room will come into effect. At the moment they're throwing drumsticks and plectrums and taking a thumbs up and taking a very well-earned bow. But any moment they'll be coming off stage, and as I say, I will record as we go along the journey that Quo will make from the stage, down the steps of the stage and to the waiting cars, and hopefully you'll hear all that goes on with that. So bear with me. It's been a great show tonight, and I'm sure the band have enjoyed it. Now they're just about to step down the steps. I'm going to stand out of the way. Lyanne, who's their PA, is shining a torch, and the guys are following Lyanne, and I'm about to do that in a moment. Dave Saltz is at the rear there with another torch, and right, I'm behind Rhino now, and away we go. So let's see if we can catch Rhino, find out what kind of a night that was. Rhino, how was that for you, madam?
Oh, I'll tell you what, that's the worst thing I ever saw. Bob Harris interviewing Bruce Springsteen. Just like, hey Bruce, how do you feel? That was all right, actually, not bad.
That's a good one.
Yeah, Rick's had some sound problems, but it's all right, good audience, you know.
Fabulous.
It's better than working. I'm afraid I do say that on a regular basis, ladies and gentlemen, but it is the truth.
Okay. All right, everybody. Well, everyone's just having a bit of a band talk, so they've got the dressing gowns on. Lai is there. Mr. Rossi's coming over. Hi, Francis. How was that?
What? Oh, yeah, it's all right. It's good fun. Yeah, it's good fun.
Excellent. Good crowd in tonight.
Yeah, when it's fun, it's worth doing. It was great.
There you go.
From the off.
Thank you.
See ya.
All right. Well, we're walking now behind the band to the waiting cars. So, again, bear with me. Okay, here we go. I'm going to follow Francis. Last one through the door. There we are. Up the steps. Past the catering and down the corridor towards the dressing room. All right. I've got to say goodbye to someone here. Jeff, see you later. See you, Rod. Take care. Absolutely.
No, we will. Yeah, no, it was lovely. I agree.
See you later, Jeff.
You're going now, eh?
Yeah, got to go.
Hey, see you guys.
Absolutely.
See
ya. Okay, now we're through catering.
You haven't put me back in yet.
And here we are, Greg Nelson, who we'll speak to later, who's been production manager on this tour from Australia. Howdy, Greg. Is there waiting. And where do you want to sit, Lai?
Wherever you like, John.
Okay.
Front seat of ours, if you like, on the front seat.
Okay.
Here.
All right, a bit of feedback there. So everyone's getting in the car. I'm going to open the door here. Move my bag out of the way. And there we go. Thank you very much.
Lovely.
You want to turn it up for a while, Mike?
Yep.
No.
Well, Rick, it's now 19 minutes past 10 on November the 14th. Where are we? What are we about to do?
Really?
It is, yeah.
We're in Melbourne, and we're about to go to Adelaide, and then we're going to play that, and then we're going to go to Perth, and then we're going to play that, and then we're going to go home. Wonderful.
Good morning.
Morning, Rhino.
Good morning, it's John Victor Edwards here. I'd like to tell you that as I had an extremely excessive night last night, I will not be taking part in proceedings on this at all today, so goodbye.
Thank you, Rhino. Well, the noise you can hear is a coach travelling from Melbourne City to the airport, and there's one member of the band that we haven't so far met on this recording, and he is Mr. Paul Hirsch. Good morning, Paul.
Morning, Mike.
How's it going?
Brill.
Now, this is your first trip to Australia, is it not?
It is.
And how are you finding it?
Big. Large.
Large. And you are a bit of a walkabout type of person, aren't you? You do like to get up and see the cities.
Yeah, I basically I can't afford to travel by public transport, so I have to walk round the cities.
Okay, well, you've been playing with the band now since May. How have you enjoyed it so far?
Well, it's just a fantastic way of life, Mike. What more can I say?
Well, no, you can't say a lot more than that, but I will ask you this. The whole experience of playing live with a band like Quo, how's that for you?
Pretty good, but I must get my ears tested when I get back to London.
All right, well, the tour's moving on now. We're on our way to Adelaide today, and then before we know it, it's going to be a show there and a show in Perth, and it's over. How will you feel when the tour is over?
Well, I feel when the tour is over. Probably quite depressed, actually.
But then, of course, you've got, I think it's about 10 days off, and you go back to the UK to continue the UK tour. And by all accounts, I haven't seen any of the UK shows yet, but by all accounts, that was going really quite heavily on the old motor. It was a good experience.
It was, together with the addition of some drug enhancement. It really helped get through that last 10 days. Thank you very much.
Cheers, Paul. Well, we've got Rhino back on track. He's woken up and he's about to tell everybody that's him having a good old slurp of his Sprite. And he's going to tell us exactly where we are.
Adelaide. Lovely to see you.
Now, Rhino's having a bit of a chomp. What is your dish of choice?
It's a chicken focaccia with aioli, tomatoes, lettuce, and a lovely glass of Sprite, ladies and gentlemen. And the son has got his hat on for a change. And I'm going to bed in a minute because I had a bit of a night last night. But then we're looking forward to entertaining the good folk of the city tonight.
Now, you've just rolled in. You guys went straight to a signing. Just explain the context of that signing after you've had your chomp and your slurp, because it was a store signing, except for there was something slightly different about this one, wasn't there?
We weren't in the store. That's what they do over here, because they have the weather. This is the weather. They sometimes put you in the middle of a mall, which is what they call a precinct here. And we did that at Brisbane, I think, as well. We had a lot of people today. They have a lot of people. I mean, it's sod's law that when the sun's belting down on you, you know, there's lots and lots of peeps there. But I don't mind. You know, it's nice to meet your fans.
Now, the other thing that people should
I don't mean that biblically either.
The other thing, I beg your pardon, that people should understand is that we are actually sitting outside a cafe on the street, effectively, in Adelaide, quite near the hotel. And the sun, as Rhino says, has got its hat on. It's very, very warm. And Rhino's got another quest in mind this afternoon.
Have I?
You certainly have. When the sun pokes out from the clouds, what are you doing?
Oh, get pink. Go, yeah, get as lobsters up as possible. Because I think otherwise the family will think I've been lying in hotel beds all the time or something. But the weather's not been, you know. We did bring the cloud with us a bit, I have to say. But I mean, I'm looking at it now. The sun's out, but there's a big cloud coming up. But apart from the magnetic island, the weather's not been that great, is it?
Not really, no. I mean, I think everybody did get a bit of a colour, and that colour has now turned into another colour, which is a normal colour called white. But look, we'll leave Rhino there to finish his meal, and we'll catch up with you later.
Thanks a lot. It's been very nice.
Now, can you hear that noise? That very rhythmical noise is Mr. Matt Letley practising in Quo's dressing room here at Adelaide Entertainment Centre about 16 minutes before the band are due to go on stage. So if I may be so bold, I'm going to ask Matt how often you do this practising and for how long?
Oh, I do it every night before the show. I've got a routine that I go through for about, well, it varies between 20 minutes and half an hour, maybe, just warming up. Do maybe a bit of weights beforehand to get the muscles working in the arms, and then start doing some rudiments.
So it's seriously about having blood pumping and, you know, kind of pumping yourself up?
Yeah, it's just warming up the muscles and just making sure everything's up to speed, and it makes the opening that bit easier.
Okay, now I must just do a bit of a naughty one with Matt, because just before I started recording, Matt has just been to a meet and greet where the rest of the band still are, and he did mention something which was actually very funny. So please, Matt, tell me why you left the meet and greet before everybody else, apart from anything else.
Well, I'm the quiet one anyway, but on this particular occasion, there was a young girl organising the meet and greet, was handing out signed autographs signed photographs of Rick and Francis, and she tried to hand one over to me, so I thought, well, that's maybe my cue to leave. So I sort of sneaked out. I thought I'd do some more practice.
That is possibly, ladies and gentlemen, the finest story I've ever heard in connection with Status Quo. Thank you, Matt. See you later.
Cheers.
I'm now just at the side of the stage, and Dave Salt is just tuning, making sure that Rhino's bass is working. You might hear him in a moment, just before the band are due to come on stage. But I'm going to join Dave in something that's become very, very traditional for Status Quo, certainly since I've been involved. As far as show days are concerned, there's definitely a very strict routine that the band keep to. And certain things always happen at certain times. And one of those certain things, I'm going to accompany Dave when he's finished playing Rhino's bass along a corridor to Quo's dressing room. And you're going to hear exactly what I'm talking about. So we will be back very shortly. Now, we are recording, and that's the kind of treatment I get from the crew, so I'm not going to attempt to disguise it. But are we about ready to start rolling, Dave?
Not just yet, Michael.
Not just yet, okay.
We still have a line check to finish.
You've got a line check to finish?
Yes, large ones, please.
Okay, and now you are doing what?
This is an acoustic guitar for Dirty Water.
Right.
And that's it.
That's it.
I can hear it in my ears.
Okay. And over the other side of the stage now, you can hear Tonta doing his thing. Toots now walking down the stage. I get so much grief. It's a wonder why I even bother to go on tour with Quo, but it is good fun.
He is right, actually.
All right, well, we're going to wait there for Dave.
Sometimes we can be a bit of a bacter.
You certainly can. But they are lovely
Mike
guys.
knows the score when we're working to get out of the way.
Well, you heard it first here. Okay.
I'm not doing it now.
You're not going to do it now?
No.
All right. Well,
See, all you can hear. So you're now listening to an ear in a microphone. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Cool.
Fantastic. Well, we're walking from the backstage area to the backstage area proper. Dave's got a torch. And Dave, I've just told people that there are certain things that happen every time on a show day with Quo. And this is going to be the first of them.
Well, it's not really the first. The first is we get up.
But this particular little tradition that I'm about to record, pushing my mic top back on, is as follows. We are now in Quo's dressing room. Excuse me.
10 minutes blue.
It's tradition, sorry, never mind. Don't ask. Right, it's Deutsch, German shit.
Now, obviously what that means, if my microphone is still working after that rather large announcement from Dave Salt, what happens is 10 minutes before Quo are due to go on stage, that announcement is made, and believe me, there is more. Now, something else happens that's also traditional. About 5 minutes before Quo are due to go on stage, another announcement is made, and very shortly, you might not be able to guess what it is. About 5 minutes before Quo go on stage. That happens, and there's more. Now, I am outside the Quo dressing room, and Rick's warming up. Thank you, Mr. Rick Parfitt. Do you know, I wondered how long it would be before he could fail to keep a straight face, but it's not long, as it never is. Thanks. Okay, so as you can hear, there's Francis in the dressing room now. Paul's here. Rick's playing away on his guitar. And I'm now out into the corridor, along which, literally in a few moments' time, Quo will come to do their gig tonight at Adelaide. Now, sorry if some of this seems a bit disjointed. It's just me, actually. Everything else is really together and organised. And I'm just going to wait for that final announcement, which is the key one that comes from Dave Salt, which will come any moment. And here, that was the final announcement, and that translated means 2 minutes to go to showtime. I've now stepped outside of Adelaide Entertainment Centre into the lovely, warm evening air with a very wonderful person called Mr. Greg Nelson. Now, Greg, tell us what you do and what you've done on this tour, please.
Basically, I'm the tour manager working for the promoter and trying to coordinate accommodation, flights, make sure everyone's comfortable, look after the ambience, and try to organise Mike Carano,
Absolutely.
who is dreadfully disorganised.
Well, can I just say, everyone, and you know, Greg has paid me a lot of money to say this, but he has been absolutely first class. He's been an absolute joy to work with, totally together, and the only thing that's gone wrong is on the last day that he's with us on this tour is losing his own suitcase. That's how together Greg Nelson is. Am I lying?
No, you're not. You're not, unfortunately.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, it's been really a pleasure for everyone to be working with you. You know that. You've seen the insults that the guys just put on the photograph they signed for you. Tell people out there who don't have as much access to Quo as you've just hopefully enjoyed for the last 3.5 weeks. What are they like as a band? How's it been for you?
It's refreshing because they're dreadfully normal. I think after 35 years on the road, they're over all the pop stardom, they're over all the fancy Nancy stuff. It's get on with it, we've got a job to do, and in downtime, they're just one of the boys.
Greg Nelson, you're a legend in your own lunchtime. Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, everybody. Well, as you can hear, Quo are actually on stage. It's now 25 minutes past 9. They've been on stage for 25 minutes, and I'm going to take this opportunity to be very nosy on your behalf. I know the band won't mind as I walk along the corridor into their dressing room so that everybody can understand what goes on in that dressing room. Now, everyone must know that when a band plays a venue and they get to a certain level of fame, they can make a demand called a rider. And that rider consists of certain things that, you know, hopefully will be placed in the dressing room for the band's use. And let's have a look what we've got here in the name of Status Quo, because they have pretty much the same thing. There's a big black table in front of me now, and we have a fruit bowl. That's something that's fairly standard, and that fruit bowl has things like, right now it's got a couple of mangoes, because we're in Australia. It's got strawberries, raspberries I think they are, bananas, there's a pineapple, there's a couple of lemons. Then they are also requiring tea and coffee making facilities, so that's here. We've got tea bags, coffee sachets, and we've got mineral water. Over here, I'm going to kick it. Don't know if you can hear that. That is an ice box, and inside the ice box there's more mineral water. Now, what alcohol do Status Quo require? Well, actually not an awful lot. There's about 4 bottles of red wine and 3 or 4 of white. The wine drinkers in the band these days are Rhino, of course, Rhino the wino. Paul Hirsch likes a bit of a drop, and that's really about it. Now, as for other drinks, Diet Coke's an essential. There's also a request for Powerade and Gatorade, which are energy drinks. Now, here's something very interesting. There's a little plate here, and on this plate, there are 2 lemons and what looks like ginseng. I might be wrong, but those 2 lemons are to be taken away at the end of the show for Francis, who every morning likes to have freshly squeezed lemon juice. Now, apart from that, this particular dressing room in Adelaide has got a fridge, it's air conditioned. There are 2 comfy looking sofas for the band to lounge around on while they wait for usually probably in the region of 4 hours at the venue before they go on stage. And that's about it really, no rock and roll excess here whatsoever. So there you go, that's what it's like inside Quo's dressing room. Now, I'm still in Quo's dressing room because there's a couple of things I forgot to mention. Incidentally, what I thought was ginseng was in fact ginger, not necessarily taken with the lemon juice, but occasionally a cup of tea in the morning with a bit of ginger is Francis' fancy. Now, a couple of things I didn't mention about the rider. Chocolates are definitely on that hit list. Always a selection, always including Kit Kat. The other thing, of course, referring to alcohol, is that we do have a new beer man in Status Quo taken over from Rhino the Wino, and that's, of course, Matt Letley. Now, we're in Australia, and in the fridge there's a bunch of what is known as Victoria Bitter, otherwise known as VB, otherwise locally known as, and pardon the French here, Vicious Bastard, because it's a strong, strong beer. And you know what? I'm going to have a sup on one, because Lyanne Worsfold, the band's very able and wonderful personal assistant, has just given me one. So, Matt, you've got 1 beer less tonight. Sorry about that. Today is November the 16th, it's 3:45 in the afternoon, and we're in Perth. I'm in room 613 of the Savile Park Suites, and joined by Mr. Rhino Edwards. Now, Rhino is packing because we're going to be going off to the gig in about 3/4 of an hour. But I've got to ask Rhino this first question because we're going to put some of your questions to Rhino for the whatever you want section of this recording. Now, I'm going to ask Rhino first of all what he had planned to do for the last couple of hours while we were here at the hotel. What was plan A?
Sunbathe, but I should have known better.
Right, now, the reason I'm asking you that is because I bet you don't know this actually, Rhino, but I just went out on your balcony about a minute ago and guess what?
What? It's raining.
It's raining.
Class.
Fabulous. Right, well, I've got a few questions, so, you know, you just carry on about your business.
Well, the clouds got us in the end.
I know. I mean,
the last laugh.
I mean, everyone was geared up, weren't they, for a couple of hours on the balcony?
Oh, been a blast, yeah.
But it's not happening.
It was so beautiful yesterday.
All right, well, here's a question from...
Actually, I have to say, even though we were swimming 50 feet away from where someone got eaten by a shark last week.
Okay, yeah, do tell that story, because that is an interesting one.
Well, we didn't know about it. We knew it was in Perth somewhere, until a certain Mike Carano decided to ask a TV crew who were there why they were filming, and then they decided to tell him that because the bloke who'd been eaten by the shark was 50 feet away from where we were swimming.
Now, did you also know, because I found this out last night, that apparently the other reason why they may have been there yesterday, was because there were sightings of a shark. There were 2 sightings, I think, either yesterday or in the past week, where we were swimming.
I know, yeah. I'm surprised it wasn't David Walker, though.
All right, well, let's
I didn't mean a shark swimming. No, that can't go on. I didn't mean it like that.
All right, well, let's move on to the first question, which, funny enough, comes from someone in Australia. Ooh. And it comes from Keith Morgan, and he's in Bittern in Victoria.
Hello, Keith.
He asks, being a Brentford supporter like myself, you must have been pretty happy with last season's effort and the start to this one. Now, I think this is the season before last. Do you get much chance to get down to Griffin Park to watch the lads?
No. I've only been once this season, which is really upsetting me, and I've also got divided loyalties here because my very local team, Hampton and Richmond Borough, has qualified for the first round of the FA Cup for the first time ever this year. So I will probably have to go and see them in preference to the Bees on that. But I just get there as often as I can. It's the escape for me, the total escape. I don't think about status quo, my family or anything. I just think about 22 men kicking a ball for 90 minutes. It's bizarre, but I love it.
All right, here's another question from someone who I don't have a name for. Wants to know...
Why are you such a cockhead?
Wants to know, having just done an album of covers, have you started to think about the next Quo written album?
Well, ask Francis.
Yeah.
I mean, I am. Francis is one step ahead of everyone else at the moment, and he's writing with Bob. Rick and I have got a few things on the go at the moment. We've not actually managed to sit down and knock them into shape, which I had planned to do on this trip. But, you know, then things like the horse riding, the jet skiing, the barbecuing, the sunbathing, the tourism just sort of got in the way a bit, really. As did the gigs.
Right, because you have got a guitar, haven't you, in your room?
Yep.
There you go.
Well, it's in a case in the room, and it's spent large chunks of time in a case.
All right, well, now moving on. This is a question from a guy called James Glynn, a general one, and he's in Bramhall in Stockport, Cheshire. He wants to know... Bramhall, I beg your pardon. Does any of the band like cooking? I know you like eating.
Andrew loves cooking. Andrew's a really good cook, so he tells me. He doesn't ever invite me over for dinner anymore, the bugger. Yeah, I like cooking, but I just don't do it very much. I've just bought a slow cooker because I do tend to like that kind of thing, like a bit of cock or vin or something like that. So I will happily get that together. Spag bol, I do. Shepherd's pie. I'll do a wicked fry up and a roast. Okay. Nothing fancy.
All right. Well, I've got a couple more before I let you pack. Very interesting one. We like this one. This is from Carl Willets, and he's in Tadley in Hampshire. He wants to know, have there ever been times when you wished you had a normal 9-to-5 job?
No, never. I never wanted a normal 9-to-5 job. I wanted to be an idiot. So if you're going to be an idiot, you can't have a 9-to-5 job. But I could be an idiot now.
Absolutely. All right, now here's another one. This is from somebody who is called Mike Elwood. He's from Abingdon in Oxfordshire. He wants to know, do any of the band like jazz, and if so, which styles and artists?
I don't know about the others really. I think Rick likes a bit. I think Francis likes a bit. I tended to like the fusion stuff when I was younger, I was really into the Mahavishnu Orchestra and Chick Corea, and but I'm still a big Miles Davis fan. But I don't really get on with a lot of the left of centre stuff, should we say? You know, the stuff that's total improvisation. I used to like Keith Jarrett as well, but not anymore.
Okay, here's a question from Kim Hotchkins.
Hello, Kim.
She's in Birmingham.
Hello there. That must be Kim, Queen of Quo.
I believe it may well be. And she asks, will you be out and about promoting Rhino's Revenge?
Oh, blimey. I don't know. Possibly. I'd like to. I had a really good time doing it last time, but it's as and when commitments allow. But I have been offered a gig with, no, I'll rephrase that. I'm talking to one of the guys from Status Quo about doing the place they play in Crewe, maybe in February sometime, and that'd be a laugh. And because I've got a shit kicking band and all that, and so you know, a must for all Quo fans.
Well, let's stop this part of the recording, as far as Rhino's concerned, with whatever you want, with another question from Kim, actually. She wants to know, what is your favourite place anywhere in the world?
Well, actually, it's a very difficult question. I mean, here, we're in Australia at the moment. It's absolutely brilliant. When we're anywhere, it's always brilliant. I mean, I'd never find a place that doesn't interest me. I mean, I love yeah, I like it all. I mean, my favourite country in the world, well, I've got two, are France and Spain, but that's nothing to do with the music. That's just, they're the only other places that I could live apart from England, I think. I'm very European in my outlook.
Okay, well, I know that this has been, you know, from a spectator's point of view, it seems to have been a very fantastic 3.5 weeks in Australia. How does it compare this time, this particular tour, to previous visits over here?
Oh, by far and away the best. Before we came here the first time, Rick and Francis used to say, oh, you know, you won't believe it when you get over there and play it. It's just so great and everyone's so nice. And the first two tours, I didn't find that at all, and I just got really homesick. And this time, it's just been superb. Absolutely mega. And I still can't wait to get home, but it's going to be a wrench leaving here tonight, because we come off stage at 10:30 tonight, or 11:15, and our flight's at 1:30 in the morning, so it'll be a bit, yeah, it will be a bit of a wrench, and it'll take me a couple of days to adjust to being back in England, which it doesn't normally. It normally takes me a couple of minutes to be when I'm home, but this time's going to be a little different.
Well, Rhino, thank you very much, and it has to be said, good day, mate.
Happy packing. Happy backpacking. Come to Australia, it's really good.
Right, well, we're in Quo's dressing room here in Perth, where Mr. Rick Parfitt is sitting down, relaxing before the last show of this current Australian tour. How's it been so far?
Good, yeah. Audiences have been good. Weather's been great. Food's been great. And can't wait to get home.
Really? And you're going to stop off in Singapore?
It's really weird talking to you.
What? What, with headphones on?
Yeah. I was going to stay in Singapore, but I'm a bit homesick, so I'm going home. So we've got 2.5 hours, just enough time to spend some money in Singapore and go home.
Well, the venue tonight is it's a low stage. It's already very warm. It promises to be a good one.
Yeah, it's like any other one, really, isn't it? I kind of like the low stage sometimes. It puts a completely different perspective on it, you know. And it's like sometimes when you haven't got a barrier. You know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Same with the low stage. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But, you know, we'll have to get out there and see. But it won't be a problem, that's for sure. Oh.
Now, so far, what's been the highlight of this trip, either, you know, live-wise or otherwise?
I have to say, that was, David, I have to say, being on Magnetic Island, it was timed kind of mid-tour, and it's in some ways it's wrong, in some ways it's right. It's nice sound, isn't it? You know, to have a break like that in the middle of the tour, you're kind of ready for it, but I mean, trying to drag myself away from Magnetic Island was very difficult. I mean, it was, quite frankly, one of the nicest places I've ever been to. The bays and the beaches and the temperature of the sea, everything about it, it was fantastic.
Now, when we were there, you were saying, you know, that you'd
Where?
like to go back to Magnetic Island.
Oh, right, yeah.
Is that likely, do you think?
I thought you were talking about Magnetic Island. Sorry. Oh, you were? Oh, Mike.
Oh, I'd love to go back there. The only thing is, it's a long way to go for a week's holiday type thing, isn't it? But you never know, in years to come, maybe a little shack there or something overlooking one of the bays would be nice.
Absolutely. Now, we're going to be home in, I don't know how many hours it is, but it's going to be cold there, isn't it? Are you prepared for that?
Well, it's hard to imagine when you're in this kind of heat. It's about 30 degrees here at the moment, and it's going to be a bit of a shock. I'm taking a pair of socks with me anyway, because I haven't had a pair of shoes on for nearly a month.
That's right.
Walking around in sandals, and I'm going to take a pair of socks with me to get off the plane in, and a jacket.
Absolutely.
It's going to be a bit of a shock, yeah, but I'm still looking forward to it.
Fabulous. Thank you, Rick.
There's no place like home.
Right, we are still in Quo's dressing room here in Perth, and I've got some questions from fan club members for the members of the band. If you remember, this is the section we normally occasionally print in the magazine called Whatever You Want, and these are real proper questions, Rick.
Whatever you want.
It's a good time, isn't it? Now, this is actually, the first one is from someone in Australia. We've already asked Rhino a question from Keith Morgan, who's in Bittern in Victoria. He wants to know, Rick, bands like the Rolling Stones and Led Zeppelin were influenced originally by such artists as Chuck Berry, Muddy Waters and Willie Dixon. Who were your main sources of inspiration?
Well, when I was very young, Lonnie Donegan playing skiffle, and then I sort of moved on to Cliff Richard, believe it or not, and the Shadows, Hank Marvin, liked him, Burt Wheaton, and also, I mean, not long after that, sort of Chuck Berry, of course, which is very reflective, I think, in our music. That's about it, really.
Okay. Right, here's a question now. Interesting. Have you ever been to Graceland?
No, I've been to Elvis's house in Los Angeles, but that wasn't called Graceland. I don't know what that was called, but I went there. I've never been to Graceland. Had the same gates, musical gates and all that.
Really?
As they open, you know.
Seriously?
Strauss waltz.
Wow.
It's not true at all. But
All right, here we go. This is, again, from someone in Australia, from Marty in Wollongong, where you recently played a gig. He wants to. He said,
Wollongong.
"Hey,
You ever seen a Wollongong?
I haven't, but I'm looking. We're in the right place to see one, though. That's for sure." Now, this actually starts off. It says, "Good day, Rick.
Good day, mate.
How are you, mate? How do you like rocking all over Australia, and what do you think about our Sheilas?"
I love rocking all over Australia. It's a fantastic place to be. The climate's great. The audiences are fantastic. The food is fantastic. You can do just about anything you want here, more or less any time. And it's just a fantastic place. I love the architecture, I love the buildings, I love the skylines of most of the cities. And the girls are nice as well.
Absolutely.
Lovely. They're very nice. There's something nice about their eyes, not to mention their shoulders and their arms. Further than that I won't go, but they're lovely. Yeah, lovely.
All right, well, here's one from Pete Martin in Newcastle under Lyme, which he informs me is near Stoke-on-Trent. That's obviously quite important.
Yes.
And he says this, and this is actually a really good question that I would like to know the answer to as well. He says, actually to Francis and Rick, is it true that you have turned down the Big Red Book on This Is Your Life twice? And if so, why? The fans would love it.
Well, as far as I know, we didn't turn it down once. It was after the day we did Rock Till You Drop. We were in the dressing room at Wembley, and as far as I know, the story goes that he was going to come in with the book, and then at the 11th hour there were huge arguments about ex-wives and ex-friends coming on, and it all became a bit of a shambles, and eventually it was cancelled. But if you think about it, it's kind of tricky anyway for it to be a duel. This is your life. I mean, you know, you can understand it with one person, you can concentrate it down one line. But I mean, Francis in the early days knows people that I don't know, and vice versa. So I think it would have been a bit of a mishmash anyway. Mishmash?
A mishmash.
Mishmash. Perthians. What do you call people from Perth? Perthans.
Absolutely.
Smashing. Yeah, so that's as far as I know. If there's been another occasion, I don't know about it and probably shouldn't.
There you go. Well, mind you, there was a programme.
This is your life. Oh, here he is.
There was, not so long ago, wasn't there? There was Stars in Their Lives,
Yeah.
which was a kind of This Is Your Life thing, except it's got one key factor missing, which is it wasn't a surprise, was it? You knew about that.
Yeah, I did, but I only half knew about it. I knew I was going to do it, but I didn't know who was going to be on.
Oh, right.
And that came as a total shock to me when they brought out a couple of my girlfriends from when I was like 12 years old. That's unbelievable. It's funny because they come out and you still see them as they were, you know. Kind of tricky for anybody who didn't know them then, but for me, I still saw them as girls. Lovely. But yeah, I didn't have a clue it was going to come on, and it was very fascinating. I enjoyed it very much, actually. It made me very nervous at first to go on and do it, because, I mean, you don't know what they've dug up about you, you know, and mind you, really to be nervous about, it's all been said, hasn't it? But it's kind of daunting when you don't know who's coming on next, you know. It was a pleasure, actually. I really enjoyed it. And it's, of course, the last show that my lovely mum did as well with us, and it was fantastic because it's funny, I never ever thought of videoing her, you know, and in the last year she did the Quo documentary and Stars in Their Lives, so I've got two lovely pieces of film of her. Because you don't video people, you don't think that you know, you want video film for prosperity. Maybe we all ought to think about that a little bit, you know, because certainly if Mum had gone and I hadn't have had these bits of film of her, I would have really been gutted if I'd not had any video footage of her, which I wouldn't have had.
Definitely.
So in that respect, I'm very pleased that I did it as well.
Excellent. Well, we've got a couple more questions for you. Don't know who this one's from, no name on this. What is your all-time favourite film?
How long have I got? I like a lot of the, on the lighter side, the Ealing comedies. I love the old black and white Norman Wisdom films and stuff like that. Cape Fear was a great film of mine. And funnily enough, excuse me, I was thinking about this the other day, and Postman Only Rings Twice, or Knocks Twice. I thought that was a great film. I like Jack Nicholson. I also like her in it. I can't remember her name.
Right. That's Jessica Lange?
Yeah. Or Leven Lang.
Is it Lang?
Lovely she is.
Yeah.
It's Bernhard Lang, isn't it?
That's it.
Jessica Lange. Yeah. Rhyming saying for Clanger. Drop to Jessica. Drop to Bernard. Love that. New one live on air.
There you go.
Drop to Bernard, don't I? Just come up. Lovely. Numerous, loads of them, but I've sort of forgotten them really.
All right, well, this is the final question, and it's coming from Mike Elwood. Asked this to Rhino earlier on. Actually, no, this is a variation. He wants to know, and Andrew's from Abingdon in Oxford, wants to know, do you like classical music? And if so, any particular composers or pieces?
I like the Planet Suite by Holt.
Another Bernard.
No, he's a Philip, isn't he? But I've never really been a fan of classical music, but I can be in the mood for it. If I'm kind of down or anything, or depressed, I don't listen to blues. I can listen to classical music, but I mainly listen to it in my car. But since we did the proms in '99, I've become a bit more of a fan because it's so powerful to actually listen to an orchestra, a 70-piece orchestra, live. I mean, the power behind it. We think, you know, we've got a lot of them with the stacks and everything like that and amplification. But you listen to an orchestra in full flight. I mean, I stood under the stage a couple of nights and listened to a couple of the classical numbers. It was amazing. So I really appreciate it, but I'm not really a fan, but I do appreciate it.
Rick, thank you very much.
Mike? Leisure, Mike.
Hello everyone, we're still in Quo's dressing room. It's now 5 to 8 and Francis has just spoken.
Blowing his nose.
Francis, well, we're about 45 minutes from your final show on this particular Australian tour.
So are we.
Absolutely. What are your thoughts this time about Australia? How's this particular trip been?
Fantastic. It's always been a great country, but we've had a better trip here than usual. I don't know why. It's a state of mind. But been a great trip. I'm looking forward to doing another one already.
Now, having said that, you're also someone who likes his home comforts, so...
Yep. It's been a very comfortable tour. We've been very well looked after, and But I get homesick, yeah, but I have to remember I love doing this. I love being at home, but I love doing this too.
And are you looking forward to actually going home? Are you laughing at my headphones falling off?
No, I was just laughing at you thinking whether I was going to get home or not. Yes, I'm very much looking forward to getting home. And I'm very much looking forward to finishing the rest of the British tour. I enjoyed the first half of the British tour. I've enjoyed touring this year. More than I've done for a long time, anyway.
And while you've been out here, I mean, obviously, as far as the fans are concerned, they're aware that you're doing gigs, but you're also doing a lot more in an average day, aren't you? An average day on a show day is involving what else?
What, over here? Usually a couple of interviews in the morning, then the signer, and meal at 2:30, sound check, and then grin and grips, as you've been watching.
Absolutely.
And there's 3 tonight, I think, 3 different ones. Some for the hotel group, some for the airline, I think, and some for the fans. So it means that we have to be ready a lot earlier and stuff like that. It's just things that you have to do. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. Sometimes it's quite fun talking to people. Quite often you walk in the room, they just stand there and look at you, and it's really awkward silence for a few minutes before we all get in the room and get going, then it's fine.
Well, I spoke to someone the other day who's actually been to 3 or 4 gigs, and he's met you umpteen times that I've known, and yet the most recent time he met you, he said you were still shaking.
Perhaps I must smell bad or something like that. I don't know what makes them shake. I don't find that all very odd.
And so, you know, as far as the meet and greet's concerned, and you've got a lot to pack into a day, so I know that everyone knows that Quo have got a routine on a show day. Are you getting a chance to have...
No,
to
my routines have been messed up, and we came to getting that, but you see no one's been napping in the dressing rooms like we normally do. And normally, you know, we would leave a hotel, I don't know, midday or something, and we're all on the bus, and there's a routine to get to. We get there and eat in time, and you get there and sleep. And but Lyanne said to me before we even started, you should forget the routines because they're not going to happen, because you can't go anywhere by bus. Gigs are too far, so you got to fly. Flying's a pain in the arse. And it's just not as good too. I'd rather tour on a bus, but you can't do that here.
No, because the distances.
Outrageous distances, yeah.
And I can see around the dressing room here, you've got your weights, there's some other exercising equipment. Is that routine interrupted while you're over here?
Yeah, I haven't done as well as I normally do. Plus, we know they're bench presses, so I do bench presses and weights and sit-ups and stuff. And if my routine gets thrown out, I find that suffers as well. And then I get annoyed because I haven't done any exercise. And I've gotten used to feeling, as I go on, kind of pumped up, if you like. Not physically, but also physically. But something happens with pumping the blood round that I feel raring to go kind of thing. Not that I'm not tonight, but it's just not the same routines. I'm looking forward to getting back. As soon as I get home, I shall start swimming madly every day. I've swum twice, I think, since we've been here. In the country of swimming pools, I've managed to swim twice.
Surrounded by sea.
Yeah, that too. And so I'm quite looking forward to getting back to England. I think we've got 7 or 10 days off. I shall go into a mad routine of exercise and swimming, get myself fit for the British tour, and then I can keep it up on the British tour because we've got everything. As I said, I use a bench press I can use and all that kind of shit, and Dave sort of works out with me quite often. But I get annoyed if I don't do it, like I've let myself down. It's a bit silly really, but...
Okay, well, as I say...
It's a nice bite you got on his face. You can't see it, but he's got a huge...
It's coming up, isn't it? Right, well, a meet and greet's beckoning, so I'm just
I'd rather stay here.
I'll come along. Okay, everyone, well, you heard it. My little chat with Francis was interrupted by the fact that the band do now have to go and do a meet and greet, so we'll walk along. Tightly. We will now walk along with them, and the gap. And
well,
that's Paul Hirsch.
Get 5 minutes more in the dressing room, we'll finish.
So, I beg your pardon.
I'm the cockhead of the group.
Here we go. What's that? Oh, now I've just been handed something. Oh, wow. I'll have to have a read of that. Yeah, this is yeah, fantastic. Actually, everybody, what it is, it's a review of Rhino's Revenge.
Someone sent me that from, we're in Perth.
Right.
I've just got an airmail from Scotland with that in it.
Fabulous. Is it good or bad without reading it? Oh, yeah, there you go. Apparently it's a thumbs up. All right, well, we're still lingering in the corridor here. And that's Dave Saul. The support band are actually on. So what we'll do is we'll follow everyone to the meet and greet, and you'll get a flavour of, if you haven't been to a meet and greet with Quo, the reaction when the group walk into the room. Okay, so Matt, can you walk and talk with me, please?
I'll have a go.
Final night of the tour, just the one show to go in about 45 minutes. How would you feel you could sum up this Australian tour with Quo?
Oh, it's been great fun. Really enjoyed it. We've had a great time. The shows have gone well, and looking forward to coming back.
Right. What about going home?
Well, obviously it's nice to be going home, but it's sad to be ending the tour. But it's got to finish at some point. But yeah, it's going to be great to get home and see the kids and the wife. So looking forward to that.
Well, I'll tell you what, Matt, I'm going to come in this meet and greet with you just to make sure they don't try and hand you a photograph this time.
Well, fingers crossed.
Thanks, Matt. Okay, well, it's a bit of a walk now, but we are still heading down towards the first meet and greet, and here we go. So I'm coming in behind the band. I'll be quiet, and we'll see what happens. There's a bunch of people in here. And, well, let's leave them to it. I'm back outside the meet and greet room, and I've got Mr. David Walker looking very sternly at me, as he has a habit of doing. But David, I've got a couple of questions for you that I would normally put to Francis, but I know he'd say, ask David. 2 questions from the fans. One is, any plans for a 40th anniversary for Quo?
Well, definitely there'll be plans, but I haven't made any yet.
Okay.
So don't ask me to be specific.
All right.
But we won't let the landmark go by without doing something special.
Fabulous. Second thing that's come up that's been referred to a few times in the context of FTMO magazine is this idea of a TV series that was mooted featuring Quo. Has anything more come of that?
No.
Okay, is it likely to?
Well, it's still on the drawing board, and I, from time to time, talk to various TV companies. It's not a case of just getting it done; it's getting it done by the right people. And as yet, I haven't felt that I've met the person that's right to produce the show. The series is written, but it's just a case of finding somebody that's got as much faith in it as we have and make a commitment.
Okay, well, finally, David, here we are. We're 40 minutes shy of the last show on this Quo tour, the third Quo tour of Australia for about 3 or 4 years now. How does this one compare? You've been on all of them.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, we're in the entertainment centres, so that's a landmark for us. What has happened this time, which we're very encouraged by, is that we've now found a record company over here that are totally committed to the band, and I think the next album we'll see it gets the right shot, which is very, very important to us. In the past, we've really been, I think, impeded by the lack of commitment from the 2 record companies that we've been with. But now we're with Festival. I'm more than confident that the forthcoming album will get the right opportunity to succeed here in Australia, and that's been the biggest plus of the tour.
Fantastic. Well, I have to say, finally and personally, David, thanks for letting me hang around and not kicking me out of the country.
I've wanted to on quite a few occasions, Mike, but you're always a pleasure to have around.
Thank you, sir. Well, finally, it's nearly 17 minutes past 9, and as you can hear, Quo are on stage. They've been on stage now for the past 17 minutes on this, the final night of the Australian tour here in Perth, year 2000. So just wanted to say finally that I hope you enjoyed this glimpse of backstage and a flavour of what Quo are like. We will do it occasionally from time to time, not quite sure when next, but until then I can certainly say this. The band would like to thank you for your continued support, and so would I at the fan club would like to do the same. So we'll speak to you soon. Thanks for listening.